At Mosport, Ontario, John Bassett and Pat Gonzalez host highlights of the exciting 24 hours of Mosport. In the Forum at Ontario Place, Canada goes head-to-head with some of the best in the world. Jeff Hutchinson and expert Glenn Lation report on the Canada Cup of Wrestling. Then Wide World of Sports moves to Race City Speedway in Calgary, Alberta. The quest for points continues in the Castrol National Superbike Championships. And at the Mississauga Gymnastics Club in Ontario, Dave Steeper and Alfie Schlegel host the Canadian Women's Team Trials. That's today on CTV's Wide World of Sports.
Hello everyone, I'm John Bassett and I'm in the midst of what is not just another car race. This is a test of people, machines and even organizations. The cars have been on the Mosport track for over 20 hours now, and you can see that reflected in the faces of the pit crews and on the telltale signs of the cars, some of which are still running after suffering severe damage. This Canadian race is the longest of an 8-race endurance championship for showroom stock cars. Pat Gonzalez had a closer look at the 3 classes of cars that were running before the race started yesterday.
Showroom stock is the operative description for the 24 hours here at Mosport. Despite the decals, roll cages, and fire and safety equipment that have been installed in these cars, the rule book is quite clear. These vehicles are essentially the same as you or I would use for our everyday transportation, but with a difference. Hundreds of thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours go into preparing these cars to make them as fast and as precise for the racetrack. This is the Morrison Cook Chevy Camaro that Canadian driver Peter Lockhart will share the driving duties with Bill Adam, Doc Bundy, Boris Said, and Bob McConnell. Peter will get a rest every 3 or 4 hours, but after a routine pit stop of about 70 or 80 seconds, this car will be back out on the racetrack with a fresh set of tires, a full load of fuel, and a new driver. And hopefully the Morrison Cook Camaro will stay out there, except for regular stops for fuel, tire changes, and a driver, until the checkered flag falls at the end of 24 hours.
The Morrison Cook Camaros run in the GT class against similar cars, the Celine Ford Mustangs and the Porsche 944 team of Jacques Bienvenu, Richard Laporte, David Seabrook, and Scott Goodyear. There are 3 classes running in this event at Mosport. John Claggett of the Sports Car Clubs of America, the organizers of this series, told us about the eligible cars.
The Escort Enduro has 3 classes. The top class is the GT, featuring cars like the Celine Mustang, the Chevrolet Camaro, Pontiac Trans Am, Nissan 300ZX Turbo. The A class is a real hotbed of competition this year, featuring the Eagle Talon, Mitsubishi Starion is in there, the Nissan 300ZX without the turbo, the Honda Acura Legend. Those are basically your A cars, and then the final class is the B class, which is really the Honda CRX dominating this year, followed by the Volkswagen GTI.
This is another hourly bulletin, just released from the timing and scoring officials. It shows the Morrison Cook Camaro leading overall in first in GT class. First in the A class is the Archer Brothers Eagle Talon. In the B class, John Torx and his Honda CRX is leading. But how we got to this point, well, there's a whole lot to that story. So let's go back with Pat Gonzalez to see how the stage was set for what looks to be a high-stakes drama finish as the final hours of this event unfold.
The field has assembled on the starting grid that's become a beehive of activity just prior to the start of this 24-hour endurance. As the first drivers prepare to strap into their cars, the anticipation is quite evident. On the grid, the B-Class pole is the number 42 Honda CRX. A-class honors belong to the number 94 Oldsmobile Calais. And on the front row, the number 97 Morrison Cook Camaro and the number 19 Celine Mustang.
And they're away from the grid. These in-car shots are provided by the Sony Handycam, mounted in a number 50 Porsche 944 S2, with Scott Goodyear handling the driving duties for the start.
Pace car pulls off to the right. It'll be heading down pit road. The Celine Mustang, the Morrison Cook Camaro at the front of this tremendous field. There you see the Mackenzie Financial Porsche. Scott Goodyear aboard, starting for the team as they come slowly through turn number 10 here at Mosport. And on the pit straightaway, they'll be looking for the green flag to get this 24-hour endurance underway. The green flags fly at Mosport. The field charges off the straightaway into turn 1. It is Steve Celine putting the Mustang out in front. From the onboard Sony Handycam, you can see Scott Goodyear running back in that third place position. Just ahead of him, one of the Morrison Cook Camaros. That is the number 97 car. They head uphill now into turn number 2. The Celine Mustang opening up about 12 to 15 car lengths over the Morrison Cook Camaro. Then it is Goodyear in the Porsche back into third place position. Through corner 3 now for the first time. It's pretty much single file as the field strings out. We've got a long, long way to go here at Mosport. The drivers try to settle into a comfortable pace. Down the chute into the famed Moss corner here at Mosport. It's still that yellow and white Celine Mustang leading through turn 5B. They now begin their run up the back straightaway. The Camaro sits in the second place position. It's still the Porsche running third. Here is some of the action further back in the field. One of our Class B Honda CRX is there. The number 37 car, and look at that traffic jam through 5B. The drivers vying for positions up the back straightaway on this opening lap. Steve Celine, the leader, brings the Celine Mustang out of turn 10. It is still the Morrison Cook Camaro running in second. Scott Goodyear in the Mackenzie Financial Porsche in third. And there's the Kaufman Mustang, that Dayglow orange car. You're on board with one of the Sony Handycams. This is the Canadian entry, the Petdorf Addison Honda CRX, one of the Class B cars, as he battles back there about mid-pack 4 position.
Just after that start, you can see Ray Kong's Turbo Nissan crew getting the word on their radios. An early crash brought us a full course yellow for almost 2 hours while work crews were making the necessary track repairs. It was Scott Maxwell and his Toyota Supra hitting the Armco going into turn 8. Both car and driver will be able to get back into the race. We'll be back for the restart of the Sony 24 from Mosport in just a moment. We're back to Mosport Park for the Sony 24. I'm John Bassett with Pat Gonzalez, and we're waiting for the restart.
The cars single file through turn 10. It looks like the repairs have been completed. The crowd here at Mosport a little disinterested, and there's the green flag. We're back to racing. Steve Celine leading the Morrison Cook Camaro down into turn number 1. They have opened up a little bit of a gap on the third place Porsche of Scott Goodyear. The advantage of that long full course yellow is that all of the drivers were able to keep the brakes and tires on their cars in almost new condition. They're side by side for the lead into turn 3. The Celine Mustang up against the Morrison Cook Camaro, and they're going right at it as we're back to racing here at Mosport. Still Scott Goodyear holding the Mackenzie Financial Porsche in the third place spot. A war going on for Class A honors. We've got the Eagle Talons in there, the Acura Legend and Olds Calais, as they're having a real go. And there's the lead change as the Morrison Cook Camaro has gone out in front. The Celine Mustang runs in second, and here's Scott Goodyear up to the outside, battling for that second place position. They're side by side through turn number 3, and the Porsche will take over the number 2 spot. Scott Goodyear going right after the Morrison Cook Camaro for the lead.
In fact, moments later, Scott was able to move into the lead, taking the number 50 Mackenzie Porsche to first overall. In the early stages, pacing is important, and although it looks close, these drivers are driving first to finish at this stage. A real jumble in Class A, and following this race is tough. The number 2 Kaufman Mustang should be a faster car, but here has been into the pits already and returned in the middle of the field. The tire screeching will go on all night. Pat found out how the racers stay friends with their neighbors at a 24-hour event.
Over 24 hours of racing, the noise of the cars could be a concern to local residents. The Walker Dynamax muffler that all of the teams in the Escort Endurance Championship uses really balances the concerns of both the community and the racers. The internal fiberglass matting reduces the noise level, while larger internal tubes creates less back pressure and better engine performance. It's one of the ways that the concerns of both the racers and the community are kept in mind in this series.
Here now in turn 5, the racing continues with the number 20 Celine Mustang going through. All of our Escort Series teams have had pit stops with driver changes. We're going now to a close-up study as the number 97 car makes a stop.
The Morrison Cook crew are standing by with air guns, tires, and refueling equipment at the ready. Only 5 crew members will be allowed over the wall, and a manual jack must be used. The refueling hose will have to be a 3/4 of an inch diameter refueling hose similar to that at the service station. As the car pulls to a stop, the crew hops over the wall and goes to work. The manual jack goes under the right side of the car, and then crew members go to work on the right side, changing tires, removing all 5 of those wheel lugs. Meanwhile, on the other side of the car, the driver change is being completed. The crew finishes tightening up the lug nuts on the right side, move over to the left, and as you can see them move around the car, it's almost as though all of their moves are choreographed. Fresh rubber for the left side of the car, and then the windshield gets a good cleaning. The refueling does take a long time because they are using a standard refueling hose you'd find at your local service station. The lug nuts have been tightened up on the left side of the car, although it still stays up on the jack to allow the last bit of fuel into the tank. Refueling completed, the driver puts it in gear and is away in less than 2 minutes.
A textbook stop. Just afterwards, we asked driver Stuart Hayner about the status of his team.
Well, I know all the teams expect their own cars to be there. The Mustangs and the Porsches are pushing it real hard. You know, last year the Fords, you know, really did us in here, and I think that they're always going to be one to reckon with. The Porsche, with that team, with Scott Goodyear and stuff, they're an awesome driver team, and they're going to have to be one to watch out for too. But never count the old Morrison Cook Camaros out, because they're going to be right up there always.
In the pits, many teams have installed additional lights in readiness for the long hours of racing through the night. Twilight has come to the rolling hills around Mosport, and many of the teams have already turned the lights on their cars. The racing in all classes continues very close. However, a steady, problem-free pace will be the formula for success in this 24-hour marathon.
Pit work makes the difference, whether it's a push, a regular stop for fuel, tires, and a new driver, or a tow to the paddock. It really is the crews that make the difference in keeping these cars going. And to keep their cars going, some teams have gone to extremes.
The Saleen Mustang crew have actually changed the engine on the number 19 car. I talked to Steve Saleen about the preparation and effort that's required for this type of endurance racing.
Running an endurance race is actually more work than running an Indy car. The endurance race, especially a 24-hour race, with running our cars this weekend, we will have at least 64, 65 full-time people that do nothing but work on the car or all the track support. They handle the pit stops, the logistics of moving the tires and fuel up from the paddock area up to the pits, and even the thing that you get into is the management of food from the standpoint the team's got to eat sometime during the course of 24 hours, so you want to try to keep that on a regular schedule.
Part of our regular schedule is bringing you the complete update of this day-long race. We'll be back with a nighttime lapse of the Sony 24. Welcome back to the Sony 24 Walker Dynomax Endurance Race. I'm John Bassett with Pat Gonzalez. The amazing thing about a 24-hour race here at Mosport has to be all the things that are happening all at the same time.
While the racing continues on the circuit, many spectators still keep track of their favorite teams. For others, and even some of the off-duty crews, Mosport offers other attractions, including a giant Ferris wheel, from which you get a different perspective of the night racing. Moss Corner is a favorite vantage point for race fans at Mosport. The view is spectacular as the cars move out of this famous hairpin and up the back straight. The infield scoreboard keeps the count of the laps and the leading cars. The corner workers use portable lights to illuminate the flags that are displayed to the drivers, warning them of various situations on the racetrack. Despite additional lights, finding the racing line can be a challenge for even the most experienced driver in these night conditions. At the end of the long Andretti straight, the GT class cars are hitting over 200 kilometers per hour before braking and downshifting for the entrance into the S's at corner number 8. Early Sunday morning at the 12-hour mark, the number 97 Morrison Cook Camaro has the lead. The number 72 Cartech Sports Nissan 300ZX Turbo is in second, while the other Morrison Cook Camaro runs back in the third place spot. From the onboard Sony Handycam, you can see what the driver sees as he negotiates the twists and turns here at Mosport in the darkness, just going by the pit straightaway and back down into turn number 1. In Class A, the number 32 Archer Brothers Eagle Talon continues to lead, while the top spot in Class B continues to be the number 42 Guardrail Racing Honda CRX. The third place number 98 Morrison Cook Camaro is in the pits to repair a broken exhaust system and loses several laps. Pit lane activity continued through the night as the crews worked on keeping their cars on the racetrack. At this stage, it was amazing that only 6 of the 40 starters had been forced to retire. The number 50 DSR Racing Mackenzie Financial Porsche is in for a regular stop. The team was slowed in the early laps by a malfunctioning refueling system, but despite those problems, they were able to run in the top 5. The number 4 Kaufman Racing Mustang makes an unscheduled stop after losing the right front wheel.
Keeping track of all these changes is a tough job. From a control center above pit lane, the timing and scoring crew keep a constant watch of all the racing laps. Chief of Timing and Scoring, Rich Langford, explains how the system works.
The main problem we have in the endurance racing is that the cars are out there for so long that they make all the pit stops, and when they make the pit stops, the lead changes often, and they'll be in for, the leader could have like 3 or 4 lap lead, and he's in the pits for a long time. It's hard to keep track of the cars and who's what and where's where. So we have primary emphasis on audit trails, air correction, air trapping. We have a computer right behind me that is doing live to the track, and then we have 5 or 6 tapers, 2 other computers running audit in the background so that we can catch all of our errors, so we can get perfect hourlies out to the team so they know where everything is standing all the time in the race so they can make their strategy decisions for the race.
In the Goodyear service area, these tire changers have been busy during the long hours of the endurance race, providing fresh rubber for the many teams. Goodyear, General Tire, and other manufacturers use the Escort Endurance Series, where the cars must run on street-legal tires, as a testing ground for their products.
Stay with us. We'll be right back to show you the conclusion of the Sony 24-hour from Mosport Park. Welcome back to Mosport Park for the concluding laps of the Sony 24.
The number 50 DSR Racing Porsche leading the Camaro into the S's. That Porsche currently running 3rd overall, and right behind is the lead car, the number 97 Morrison Cook Camaro, but they are running in tandem as they come out of turn 10, and on the pit straightaway, the action has been like this through much of this 24-hour endurance.
Well, this is it. The final pit stops. Driver changes and fuel fill-ups for all our competitors are coming up to finish the final laps of the event. Here's Pat with a late race update.
The number 9 B-Class Petdorf Addison Honda CRX has blown a head gasket and has been retired. The crew is still keeping track of their one remaining car that's running in 3rd place. The B-Class leader is the number 42 Guardrail Racing Honda. They have led throughout much of the event. Out of the pits, the number 50 DSR Racing Porsche in the GT class has its last tank of fuel and is back out onto the racetrack. You can see now that the number 19 Saleen Mustang, this car lost many laps after a complete engine change in the night, but they're determined to have the team complete and running at the finish. That number 50 blue and silver Porsche holding on to the 3rd place position, sandwiched in the 2 Saleen Racing Mustangs. And here is your leader in a moss corner, the number 97 Morrison Cook Camaro out of turn 5B, and on their way up the back straightaway, the number 72 Cartech Sports Nissan is in 2nd, and this car, the number 50 Porsche, holding on to the 3rd place spot. 4th is the other Morrison Cook Camaro, the number 98 car, and then in 5th is the number 20 Saleen Mustang.
Looking along the pits, you can see the nervousness. All these crews know it's not over until the checkered flag drops.
Through turn 9 of the S's, the top 3 cars in A-Class, 3 brand new all-wheel drive Eagle Talons have bunched together. They're just running this one out. It looks like a 1-2-3 sweep is almost assured. These have not been the fastest cars in the class, but they have been the most consistent, and they're going to show it off now to the finish. Your leader, the Morrison Cook Camaro, through Moss Corner on its way up the back straightaway, has got a commanding lead. If they can keep it on the racetrack, it looks like they will win it. Your Class B leaders, the number 42 Team Guardrail Honda, and then right behind, this number 27 Autosport Honda CRX did lead the B class for a while, but they currently run in 2nd. It looks like they will finish in 2nd in B class. The Guardrail Racing Honda CRX that is running 7th overall and leading that B class has really had a brilliant run here today. In fact, they're on the same lap as these 3 Eagle Talons that run 1st, 2nd, 3rd in Class A. And here comes the leader, trying to come through on the inside through corner number 3. But the Morrison Cook Camaro is sandwiched in between those Class A Eagle Talons. Here is your 2nd place car overall, the CarTech Nissan 300ZX, on its way up the back straightaway, about a half a lap back of the leading number 97 Morrison Cook Camaro. And here comes that Camaro through the S's for the final time. Just 1 corner to go, and the checkered flag will be out at the start-finish line after 24 hours of racing. There it is, the checkered flag, and yet another victory for the Morrison Cook Camaro team as the 3rd place Porsche comes up across the line. And the number 72 CarTech Nissan 300ZX will take the checkered flag to finish in 2nd. So it is Camaro, Nissan, and Porsche in that order as the Morrison Cook crew congratulate each other.
Final standings in B class have John Torg's Guardrail Racing CRX winning with 721 laps. 2nd place is the Autosport CRX 1 lap back, and 3rd is Torg's 43 car.
The drivers, Scott Gaylord, Peter Cunningham, and Tim Evans celebrate.
And it was a Talon sweep in the A class as the Diamond Star Talon was overall winner with 721 laps completed. The Thrifty Car Talon was 2nd with 716, and 3 laps back was the World of Wheels Talon in 3rd place.
On the victory podium, the quartet of drivers who took that Talon to the victory, R.K. Smith, Neil Hanneman, Paul Brand, and Mac Demare, receiving their trophies and congratulations down on the victory podium here at Mosport.
But the overall victory goes to the number 97 Morrison Cook Camaro, completing 749 laps. And amazingly, the 2nd place car was also on the same lap, that being the CarTech Nissan 300ZX. In 3rd place was the DSR Porsche 944 S2.
The winning drivers celebrate: John Heinrichsey, Don Knowles, Kim Baker, and Stu Hayner. From the Sony 24 Hour at Mosport, I'm Pat Gonzalez for John Bassett. So long.